There comes a moment in life when you realize, the more you force, the more things fall apart. You force a relationship, and it becomes heavy. You force an opportunity, and it drains your spirit. You force people to understand you, and they still misread you. You force doors open, only to discover there was no peace behind them. You force a version of life you thought you wanted, and lose yourself trying to hold it together, and that is the tragedy of so many lives. Not that people fail, but that they exhaust themselves fighting for things God was never asking them to carry. Some of the deepest suffering in your life has not come from denial. It has come from resistance. Resistance to endings, resistance to silence, resistance to uncertainty, resistance to closed doors, resistance to waiting, resistance to the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, what you are chasing is not meant for you. And that is where this message begins. Because maybe the reason everything feels so hard is not because God has abandoned you. Maybe it is because your ego is trying to lead a life only God can direct. CarlJung once said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And sometimes that absurdity looks very respectable. It looks like hustle. It looks like obsession. It looks like attachment. It looks like trying harder, controlling more, overthinking longer, begging for clarity, pushing the outcome, clinging to people, clinging to plans, clinging to timelines. But underneath it all is the same hidden fear. If I stop forcing, what if everything falls apart? And yet the deeper truth is often the opposite. If you stop forcing, you may finally see what was never meant to stay. You may finally hear what God has been whispering beneath the noise. You may finally notice that what you called delay was protection. What you called rejection was redirection. What you called confusion was the collapse of a false path. This is not a message about passivity. This is not about laziness. This is not about doing nothing and calling it faith. This is about learning the difference between effort and force. Effort is clean. Force is desperate. Effort says, I will show up. Force says, I must control the result. Effort is obedience. Force is fear wearing ambition. And if you've been living in a season where everything feels blocked, strained, unnatural, delayed, or painfully out of alignment, then maybe this is your invitation. Not to push harder, but to let go deeper. Because some things in your life will only begin to move when you stop trying to be God. So in this video, we're going to explore why you should never force anything, how forcing is often the language of ego, how God often directs through silence, disruption, and closed doors, and why surrender is not weakness, but one of the highest forms of spiritual intelligence. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop wrestling with what is leaving, stop chasing what is hiding, stop reviving what God is removing, and finally trust the direction of peace. 1. If you have to force it constantly, it may not be from God. Let's begin with the truth people feel but rarely admit. When something is from God, it may stretch you, but it does not usually make you betray yourself to keep it alive. Read that again. Because many people are not living in alignment. They are living in maintenance mode, maintaining relationships that only survive through anxiety, maintaining jobs that hollow out their soul, maintaining identities that no longer fit, maintaining connections where they do all the pursuing, all the explaining, all the fixing, all the emotional labor, maintaining a version of life that looks right from the outside, but feels wrong in the spirit. And because they are used to struggle, they mistake difficulty for destiny. But not every hard thing is holy. Some things are hard because they are building you. Other things are hard because you are holding together what heaven is trying to dismantle. That distinction will save you years. Jung would call this the conflict between the ego and the deeper self. The ego clings. The ego insists. The ego says, "I know what I need." The ego says, "If I just try harder, I can make this work." The ego would rather suffer in control than rest in uncertainty. But the deeper self, and for the believer, the place where divine direction meets the soul, speaks differently. It does not scream. It does not panic. It does not beg. It waits. It nudges. It unsettles. It withdraws peace from what is false. That's why some of you are exhausted. Not because you are weak, but because your soul is tired of carrying what your flesh keeps choosing. If every step feels like warfare, if every interaction leaves you depleted, if every effort requires you to silence your intuition, if every door opens only after you compromise your peace, your dignity, your values, your discernment, then maybe the problem is not that you need more discipline. Maybe the problem is that you are trying to force life where God has removed grace. And once grace lifts, everything becomes heavier. 2. Forcing usually begins where fear takes over. Why do we force things? Because we are afraid. Afraid of missing out. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of starting over. Afraid that this is our last chance. Afraid that if we let go, nothing better will come. Afraid that if we stop chasing, we will be forgotten. Afraid that if we trust God, He might take us somewhere unfamiliar. So instead of surrender, we tighten our grip. We overtext, we overexplain, we overplan, we overthink, we overwork. We try to predict everything. We try to secure everything. We try to manipulate timing, outcomes, feelings, people, perceptions, and then we call it responsibility. But sometimes it is not responsibility. Sometimes it is panic dressed as control. This is where the CarlJung energy becomes sharp. Because what you force externally often reveals what you have not healed internally. If you force love, maybe you fear abandonment. If you force success, maybe you fear insignificance. If you force clarity, maybe you cannot tolerate uncertainty. If you force people to choose you, maybe you do not yet believe you are already held by God. And until that deeper wound is faced, you will keep mistaking desperation for devotion. That is dangerous, because fear can make you worship outcomes that were never assigned to you. Fear can make you call it faith, while you are actually operating in obsession. Fear can make you chase a person God is asking you to release. Fear can make you remain in seasons that have already expired. Fear can make you build golden calves out of your plans. And the terrifying thing about fear is this: it feels urgent. It always tells you, now, fix it now, push now, solve now, secure now. But God rarely moves in the atmosphere of panic. God may move suddenly, but He does not need your anxiety to accomplish His will. The enemy of peace is not always pain. Sometimes it is your need to control what only surrender can reveal. 3. God often directs you by making the wrong path feel heavy. This is the part people don't like. We want God to direct us with obvious signs, a voice from heaven, a clear answer, a perfect map, a guaranteed outcome. But often God directs more quietly than that. Sometimes He lets the wrong thing become so exhausting that your soul can no longer pretend not to notice. He lets the mask slip. He lets the pattern repeat. He lets the conversation keep disappointing you. He lets the door open just enough for you to see there is nothing behind it. He lets you get exactly what you thought you wanted, until you realize it has no life in it. That too is direction. Not every divine answer sounds like yes. Sometimes it feels like frustration. Sometimes it feels like a loss of appetite for what once obsessed you. Sometimes it feels like emotional dryness around a person you used to chase. Sometimes it feels like confusion every time you try to force the next step. Sometimes it feels like delay that offends your ego, but saves your future. Jung spoke of individuation, the painful process of becoming who you truly are, rather than who the world conditioned you to be. And that process almost always includes disillusionment. Why? Because God cannot direct the true you while the false you is still being worshipped. So he allows collapse. The false path starts cracking. The false relationship begins suffocating. The false identity loses its shine. The false ambition starts feeling empty. The false certainty begins to rot from within. And because the ego hates death, it calls this punishment. But sometimes it is mercy. Because what if God is not destroying your life? What if he is stripping away the life you built without him? That is a very different story. And if you are in a season where things feel unusually blocked, don't rush to label it failure. Ask a deeper question. What is God trying to free me from by making this so uncomfortable? Because sometimes the weight you feel is not the sign to push harder. It is the sign to stop dragging a dead thing into your future. 4. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving God room. Let's correct a dangerous misunderstanding. When people hear, "Don't force anything," some assume it means be passive. Sit back. Do nothing. Avoid action. Blame everything on timing. That's not surrender. That's avoidance. Real surrender is not inactivity. It is release control. It is when you still show up, still pray, still prepare, still obey, still move when God says move. But you stop trying to manipulate the result. That is a completely different energy. Surrender says, I will do my part, but I will not play God. I will plant, but I will not force the harvest. I will walk through the door of peace, but I will not break down closed ones. I will love, but I will not beg. I will work, but I will not worship achievement. I will trust, even when the path is unclear. That kind of posture is powerful because it shifts your identity. You stop living like an orphan who must secure everything alone. You start living like someone who is led. And led people move differently. They do not rush the wrong things. They do not panic at every closed door. They do not cling to every loss. They do not interpret every delay as abandonment. They do not assume silence means God is absent. Sometimes silence is where direction is being formed. Sometimes God will not explain the whole path because explanation would keep your ego in charge. He gives you enough light for the next step, not enough certainty to avoid trust. And that is where most people struggle, because they don't want God to lead. They want God to approve the life they already decided to force. But faith does not work that way. Faith says, even if I don't understand what you are doing, I trust the hand that is doing it. That is what makes surrender terrifying and holy. 5. What leaves your life is not always a loss. Sometimes it is an answer. One of the most painful things God will ever do is remove what you would have kept. A person, a job, a season, an identity, a plan, a dream in its current form. And because we are attached to familiarity, we call every removal heartbreak. But what if some endings are actually answers to prayers you forgot you prayed? You asked for peace, and God removed the person disturbing your spirit. You asked for growth, and God ended the comfort zone. You asked for purpose, and God dismantled the distraction. You asked for clarity, and God let the illusion fall apart. You asked for him to direct you, and then got angry when he changed the route. This is where spiritual maturity begins, when you stop judging God by how closely his direction matches your preference. Jung might say that the psyche grows through symbolic death. Something in you must die for something deeper to be born. Your false certainty, your dependency, your need to be chosen by certain people, your attachment to timelines, your fantasy of how life was supposed to unfold. And the reason these deaths hurt so much is because the ego experiences surrender as annihilation, but the soul experiences it as liberation. That's why there are seasons where God seems to remove support systems, strip distractions, expose false relationships, delay opportunities, and isolate you from environments that once defined you. It feels cruel at first, until later. Later, you see that what broke your heart also broke your attachment. What disappointed you also delivered you. What left you also revealed you. What didn't work also preserved you from becoming smaller than your calling. The problem is that most people interpret removal too early. They look at the cutting and call it destruction. But any gardener understands, pruning is not hatred, it is preparation. So if something is leaving, stop asking only, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is God protecting me from? What is He making room for? What in me is being asked to release control? That question will change your life. 6. God's direction often feels like peace, not pressure. Here is one of the simplest but most ignored truths of discernment. God may challenge you, but He does not usually lead you through inner violence. Pressure screams, peace guides. Pressure says, hurry or you'll miss it. Settle or you'll be alone. Force this or you'll fail. Take what you can get. Compromise now. Prove yourself. Chase them. Make it happen. Peace says, if it is for you, you will not have to betray yourself to receive it. If it is from me, it will not require you to abandon wisdom. Wait. Release it. Not this. Not yet. Trust me. Now, peace is not always comfortable. Sometimes peace leads you into unfamiliar territory. Sometimes peace asks you to let go of what your flesh wants. Sometimes peace makes you walk away from what looks good on paper. Sometimes peace requires courage. But even then, it is clean. It does not intoxicate you with panic. This is why so many people miss God's direction. They have become addicted to urgency. If something feels intense, they call it passion. If something feels chaotic, they call it chemistry. If something feels obsessive, they call it purpose. If something feels emotionally consuming, they call it destiny. But not everything intense is divine. Sometimes intensity is just trauma meeting temptation. And if you do not know the difference, you will keep forcing what excites your wounds and ignoring what calms your soul. That is why stillness matters, prayer matters, silence matters, discernment matters, pulling away from noise matters. Because when your inner world is too crowded, you mistake your own fear for God's voice. And God's voice is rarely frantic. 7. The life God directs will require trust more than control. At some point, every spiritual person must confront this. Do you want God's will? Or do you want control with religious language? That question cuts deep, because many of us say, God lead me, but secretly mean, God bless my preferred outcome. And when He does not, we become frustrated. But a directed life is not a controlled life. It is a yielded life, and yielded people are dangerous in the best way, because they are no longer enslaved to outcomes. They can walk away when grace lifts. They can wait when others rush. They can release when others cling. They can obey even when the next step is unclear. They can endure not knowing because their trust is not in the map, but in the one holding it. That kind of faith creates a different presence. You stop looking desperate. You stop sounding frantic. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop forcing every connection. You stop breaking yourself trying to secure what God can give without your panic. And people will call it confidence, but beneath it is surrender, a deep, grounded, unshakable surrender, not because life is easy, not because you always understand, but because you've learned that forcing never gave you peace anyway. All it gave you was exhaustion. So now you move differently. You pray, you listen, you prepare. You act when it is time. You release when it is over. You trust when it is unclear. And slowly your life begins to change, not because every answer arrives at once, but because you are no longer fighting God for control of the steering wheel. So never force anything, not the relationship, not the opportunity, not the friendship, not the timing, not the healing, not the outcome, not the version of life your ego is terrified to release. Because if you have to constantly force it, chase it, manipulate it, over-explain it, revive it, obsess over it, drag it, and silence your spirit to maintain it, there is a good chance God is not in it the way you want him to be, and that does not mean you stop living. It means you start listening. It means you stop confusing fear with faith. You stop calling panic passion. You stop calling control wisdom. You stop calling obsession love. You stop calling resistance purpose. And you begin to trust something higher than your own desperation. Maybe that closed door was mercy. Maybe that delay was protection. Maybe that confusion was exposure. Maybe that loss was direction. Maybe that season of emptiness was God clearing the noise so you could finally hear him. And maybe the greatest piece of your life will begin. The moment you stop trying to force your way into rooms, hearts, roles and seasons that God never assigned to you, because what is truly meant for you under God's hand will not require you to become someone false to receive it. It may require patience, it may require faith, it may require courage, it may require obedience, it may require letting go of almost everything you thought you wanted, but it will not require you to live in constant spiritual strain. So take a breath, release your grip, step back from what keeps stealing your peace, and ask God a more dangerous prayer. Not my will, but your direction, even if it costs me what I was trying to force. That prayer will break your ego, but it may save your life. Because the deepest blessing is not getting everything you wanted. It is being led somewhere better than your fear would have ever chosen. And once you learn that, you stop chasing, you stop forcing, you stop begging dead things to live. And you finally become the kind of person who can say, if it is from God, it will come with peace. If it is not, I will let it go. That is not weakness. That is spiritual power. If this spoke to you, comment, I release control and trust God's direction.